Well, welcome, Tom Warrick, to JST Talks and TvAbraham.
Thank you.
And it's great to see you, my old friend. We worked together some years ago in the State Department.
Those were heady years.
Heady years, also in Iraq itself.
Yes.
So we're now on the 24th anniversary today of September 11th, 9/11. And I thought we'd start out, given your background, I think of all the people that have touched Iraq, you were among the most deeply knowledgeable about the place. You started well before the 9/11 and working on the future of Iraq policy, and you continued for years afterwards before moving to DHS and becoming the head of the counterterrorism unit there. But your experiences in Iraq are very relevant, and we hear less about Iraq now. But tell me what you think now. Here we are on the 24th anniversary of 9/11 that really touched off this deep U.S. engagement with that country. Where are we now with Iraq, the U.S.-Iraq relationship?
Well, so things have changed fundamentally. There have been a series of eras in the U.S.-Iraq relationship. There was, the era of occupation that, changed relatively quickly over to one of close partnership. There was the attempt to disengage around 2011 when Daesh took over Mosul. That was a wake-up call that re-energized
2014,
June of 2014. That re-energized a military campaign, the likes of which were deeply significant and in many ways not surprising to those of us who were working counterterrorism, who had become concerned about what Daesh was doing.
Yes.
Eventually, Daesh was pushed out of Iraq, lost what territory they controlled in Syria, but they actually do still remain a threat to Iraq.
They do?
Yes. And in Western Iraq in particular, they are known to have cells. They're known to control some degree of the local economy, extorting payments from businessmen, farmers, and herders and others. And so
do they have a tribal
away.
basis there, or
no? And in fact, the tribes, by and large, are opposed to them.
Right.
Because their entire so-called caliphate was built on undermining any competing social infrastructure.
Right.
The thing, though, that cost Iraq dearly was the sectarian mindset of the government in Baghdad, because when Daesh moved to take control of Mosul, they could not have done that if they had not had either the support or the quiet acquiescence of hundreds of thousands of Iraqis, especially from the mostly Sunni areas.
Right.
And so Iraq's politics have changed over this time period. Just before the pandemic started, there was a movement in Iraq to try to free it of Iranian influence. Iran, through a variety of means, overt and covert, dominates a significant part of the non-Kurdish landscape. And yet this is deeply
And what about
resented.
their Iranian relationship with the Kurdish landscape, as you say, the power centers in Suleimania and Erbil? How would you characterize that relationship?
It's a wary relationship of neighbors who realize they have to live together, but they don't have to be friends.
Okay.
And so I would describe, having talked to a number of Kurdish political figures over the years, I would the one-word description would be in the English sense of the word correct. In other words, not particularly friendly, not opposed to each other. They certainly watch each other with a wary eye in both directions.
And that's very different than the Iranian relationships with the Shiite political parties in Baghdad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so this is still a problematic element for many Iraqis who deeply resent Iranian influence in Iraq's political affairs, and yet many Iranian leaders, when they visit Iraq, make a point of showing that the relationship is not entirely neighborly.
Right.
And there are Iraqi politicians who still to this day depend on Iranian support, military, or monetary or
Really?
otherwise.
Yeah.
Yes. We saw a lot of this in the concerns over this bill that was in the Iraqi parliament, the Council of Representatives.
Mm-hmm.
And this bill would have given a special status to these Iranian-funded militia groups. It would have made them
known collectively as al-Hasht or something, right? Or no?
well.
Those are
yes,
mobilization.
because, right.
Yeah.
And one of the things that people like me need to remind at least American audiences is that a lot of these militia groups that were set up after Daesh took Mosul in 2014, some of them were loyal to Iran and were paid by Iran. Others were loyal to Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani in Najaf. And he had a very different nationalistic approach to the units that really operated.
So they're not all the same, no.
No, they're very different, in fact, in their ultimate loyalties and otherwise.
What's the name of the one that's Sistani affiliated?
That I don't remember at this moment.
Yeah.
But the important thing, though, to remember is that by taking these groups that had been funded by Iran and making them part of the regular Iraqi forces, there were still questions over who their ultimate loyalty would be directed at.
Right.
It's also true that these Iranian-funded militia groups, many of which continued to be deployed in areas where Daesh had exerted influence, many of these groups had enormous resentment from the local populations and behaved as if they were criminal gangs, not there to protect the people, but to exploit the people. So the resentment of these Iranian-backed groups was quite strong in some places. And so the question what to do with these groups was one that caused friction in the U.S.-Iraqi relationship. And at the same time, there was the question that many of these groups, Kataib Hezbollah and others, would attack U.S. bases with rockets and missiles on either thin pretexts or no real pretexts at all.
Right.
This is one of the reasons that led to President Trump's decision in 2020 to take out the Iranian Guards Quds Force General Qasem Soleimani.
Right.
This then led to a retaliatory strike by Iran.
Yeah.
And so what you had is a situation where President Trump, although he supported the Iraqi government and the Iraq project in the way it had finally evolved when you get to 2017 through 2020, nevertheless, the question is, why are American troops still in harm's way?
Right. They're still at the Taji Air Base in just
that's
north
one of the
Baghdad?
bases. That's one of the bases that's being given up. So the idea,
because that's a huge facility.
Oh yes. And there are several others. The Al-Assad Air Base in western Iraq and others. So what's just happened is the transfer of what remaining military forces are in Iraq into bases in Iraqi Kurdistan, where American troops are welcome.
That's underway, right?
Yes, that's what's going on right now.
Yeah.
And so they'll be welcomed there because they provide a measure of security reassurance.
Yes.
Especially against Daesh. But
also,
it also gets them out of parts of Iraq that were really attracting these militia groups' attention.
More on Iraq. Before we get to the future of Iraq, which I do want to hear your views, is Iraq a democracy? Let's remember that President Biden instituted something called the Summit of the Democracies. Now, there were only two countries invited from our lovely region of the Middle East, Israel, of course, but also Iraq was invited to the two summits of democracies. And then, of course, Freedom House, which grades these things, would not even put it on the partly free category. You have fully free, partly free, not free. Iraq fits, according to Freedom House, into the not free. Where is Iraq on the spectrum?
So Iraq has the constitutional mechanisms of a republic, a federal republic.
Right.
And it has elections, it has political parties, it has people who still want to vote. Voter turnout in Iraqi elections is, although down in recent years, is still higher than even in the United States in most cases. But there are several reasons why it's still not as fully developed as many wanted, both here in the United States and especially in Iraq. Political party funding, believe it or not, is actually at the heart of one of the reasons why Iraq's democracy has not become as robust as people would like. The question of Iranian influence, which Iraqi voters do bear in mind as they vote, is another factor. And so, one of the things that I remember thinking back in the days when I was in the U.S. State Department was, if you look at other models of democracy, robust, flawed, everything in between, Iraq has settled on a model that was reminiscent of the way some American big cities were governed in the 19th century. And
patronage-based.
Yes, well, understand how they work. They're patronage-based systems where people get services from the government in return for voting for the party that delivers those services.
Right.
And that still motivates a fair number of elections in Iraq. At some point, many of us recognize Iraq needs constitutional reform. And I do think this is one of the things that is going to come up relatively soon, not decades from now, but years from now. There's
it sounds like you're very hopeful then.
Well,
it's moving in the right direction.
If they can get this right, and certainly, as everyone says, Iraq is in a dangerous neighborhood.
Yes.
In many ways, the movement in 2019 that was cut off by the start of the pandemic is probably waiting for a spark to reignite.
Okay.
And although the spark may be some...
What was the movement that happened?
Well, there were a series of protests that were quite popular against Iranian influence.
Right.
And trying to say that they wanted Iran to have less of a role in Iraqi politics than it does now. And that movement was genuine and, as we would say in the United States, grassroots. But this is one of the things that there are some other technical issues in the way Iraqi democracy works that could be addressed through constitutional reform. The Kurds, although they got federalism, their one essential requirement for joining the Iraqi Republic, nevertheless have never been satisfied that some of the aspirations of their status have not been implemented, including parts of the Constitution that would call for certain kinds of referenda. And we saw in the failed referenda for Kurdish independence that degree of unhappiness is still there. And so there are perennial fights in Iraq over how revenues will be allocated to provinces.
Right.
And these kinds of issues really do, need to be addressed.
So, Tom, in a couple sentences, how do you feel about the future of Iraq? Something like 22 years ago, the U.S. invaded the country, occupied it, turned it over, but remains deeply engaged, including, as you noted, with significant military forces based in the country, moving from one part to another, but still there. And what's the trajectory?
Well, the trajectory depends, ultimately, like so many other things in the Middle East, on what happens in Iran.
Okay.
If Iran drops this idea that it runs militia groups in other countries that are not under the control of those countries' government. If Iran can be persuaded to drop this approach, then Iraq has a very robust and rosy future.
Okay.
Otherwise, as long as Iran continues to meddle in Iraqi politics, as long as there are questions about the loyalty of military forces inside Iraqi territory, things are going to be on edge. Over time, this may change, but I think we'll find ultimately that when the situation in Tehran changes, the situation in Iraq will change, and I would certainly hope for the better.
Got it.
Iraq does now have a stable enough relationship with the United States, but it still needs to make significant improvements in transparency and the rule of law, reducing corruption that plagues the ordinary Iraqi citizen every day.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these kinds of things need to change, but the hope is going to be that they will improve.
So get rid of the foreign influence. Not the U.S. foreign influence, but the Iranian foreign influence.
Well, and yes, return the relationship to one of mutual respect and independence. The
Got it.
same relationship Iraq has with many of its Arab neighbors.